Hey guys, right now I'm about to do a tutorial for you on Google Docs and also using Google Sheets just to help you out with your science lab. So the first thing is, if you're not sure how to get to a Google document, you have to be signed into your Google account. And then right here you see that there's a Google Apps and you're going to go to your Drive. And from there, that's where you can easily just go to New, find the Google Docs or Google Sheets, or in the future, if you're doing a presentation, there's Google Slides, but that could be a whole different tutorial. But for right now, we're going to focus on the Google Docs. And then, like I said, I'm also going to show you a little bit of Google Sheets. So I already have a Google Doc ready to go. I titled it right here, Science Lab title page, so I can just keep it in order. I can always go back and change that if I want to, if I keep adding to this lab, but right now I'm just going to keep it the title page. So a couple features I want to show you. I know that some of you are more familiar using Microsoft Word, or if you have a Mac, there's one called Pages, but Google Docs and all of those softwares are basically the same. They have the same document to work with, but the buttons just might be in a different place. So what I like to tell people first is that I personally like to start all my papers at a single space format. So I go under Format and I go to Line Spacing and I start off with single space. And that's just going to help me just kind of keep it organized, and then at the end I can always go back and change it to double space. So it just depends on the type of paper. But I recommend that you always start off with single space and that you just start setting up all your features first before you keep going on. Now, depending on your teacher, sometimes they might ask you for specific font sizes or specific fonts to use, but I would say standard for the actual writing part, you're going to be looking at 12 and 14, and normally it is a Times New Roman or even Arial, but I would double check with your teacher. And for a heading, you would change it to either 18 or 24. So I'll show you what that means in a second. So I'm going to go ahead and center this right now. So right here, it has my left alignment, center, and for some of you, if I take away, let's see, sometimes like it hides. So now, well, that's, I guess, is all there. But for some reason, you don't see this right away for some of your pages. I promise you it is there. It's just all these little arrows sometimes are a little um, misplaced. So I would just play with the arrows where it says more, just drop down. You can see now I have my bullet points and my numbers. So it gets a little sneaky, but just be aware that it is there. You just got to look for it somewhere. So I'm going to keep going. Right now I just centered this. It's at size 18. It's Times New Roman, and I'm on the first line that it gave me, and I'm going to go ahead and title this Science Lab. Now, you might have a specific title that you would probably write in, but since I'm just doing a sample, that's all I'm going to be writing. So, Science Lab, I'm going to go ahead and push Enter. I would write down my name. I'll just go ahead and write down my last name for right now. I'm going to go ahead and tell the audience what this is for and where they can find me, period 4, and I'll go ahead and write down today's date. Okay. So as you can see, this title should actually be the biggest, and all the rest should be definitely a little bit smaller. So I'm going to go ahead and change that either to size 14, and if that looks good to me, or if I want to make this a little bit bigger, that is what I'm going to do. So I think I changed it to 24 and 14 for right now. So I'm going to go ahead and push enter a couple times, and I'm going to go ahead and write down question. And I want you to notice that I did not change, now it's still centered, so it's not to the left yet. I would double check with your teacher if they want the question in the center or on the left alignment, but either way, I can show you both. So I'm just going to write down a sample question. What is a question? And then I'll just say your question goes here. Okay. So again, I would make this probably a little bit bigger. I think, let's say maybe 18. Yeah. So I'm not really sure on the size that you would want it there, but for the most part, I just want to show you some more of the features of Google Docs. And um, so now I'm going to left align it, or I can go back and center align it. And then again, I'm going to go push enter and write hypothesis. And I'm going to go ahead and write down my prediction. So, oh, I guess it's not my prediction, it's my hypothesis. So I would go ahead and I could either left align it or center it. Now, definitely you want to make sure that this heading and this one are the same size. So whatever size that your teacher is asking you to do, just double check that they are the same size. Now I'm going to zoom back. So right now it says 100%. That's what I can see on my paper right now. I'm going to zoom out so I can see what would this look like on a paper that I printed. And this technically would not look very nice if I were to print it right now. So what I recommend, right here it seems like we could definitely use some more spacing. So we're just going to go ahead and space that down. I'm going to go ahead and put that little mouse before the S. I'm going to probably space it out, like count to 3. 1, 2, 3. And so that looks better. I'm also going to put a little bit more space here. And also 1, 2, 3. And of course, yours is going to look a lot nicer because you have more writing and you actually know what this project is for. Alright, so that's a little bit of the basics of centering your title page, and what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go on to how to write your procedure page. So I'm going to go ahead and I can do two things. Either I can go to insert and go to page break, and that would take me to a second page, so if I want to print it out all like that, or if you plan on just working one by one, I just went to my Google Drive, went to new, went to Google Docs, and now it's creating a new Google Doc page, and this one I can call like procedure if I want to do that. But just keep in mind you would have to print it out separately, and in the future when you're writing papers, and maybe even this paper, if your teacher wants you to add page numbers, that would be a little tricky. So it's possible, but I don't know. It just depends on what your ultimate goal is. So again, I'm going to go ahead and push enter because I'm on this first document where I did the title page. So now I'm going to go ahead and push enter. And I think I did it like 4 times. And again, I still am on, let's see, let me just double check. I'm on line spacing and it's still single space. Okay, now let's say that your teacher does want single space for this one. All I can do after I wrote down everything that I wanted to, I can highlight. So all I do is just grab my mouse and I'm holding down, like right clicking with that mouse. And once I let go, it should be blue. So that's how I know it's highlighted. And I'm going to go to format, go to line spacing, and I can go to double spacing. So that might also help with the spacing, but of course I might have to go back and fix some of that. Okay, so keep that in mind. But I'm not going to stress too much about it. So let me just do Control Z. Control Z just means undo. That's a little shortcut. Or right here, you can just click on the arrow and it says undo. So again, just double check with your teacher whether it's double space or single space. But now you guys know it's under format and line spacing. Okay, so now I have this extra page, my second page as I was working on. And I'm going to go ahead and call this procedure. And as you guys can see, maybe I can zoom in now because it's a little too small. And so here I am on procedure. And let's see, I can see it's size 14, it's still Times New Roman. That's another tip. Just stick to one font style. Do not change font styles for every page or everything that you're working on. It just looks better and very neat when you keep it the same font. Okay, alright, so here I am on procedure, and this is where I would start writing down, I guess, the steps of my experiment. I'm going to go ahead and left alignment, do my left alignment now, and this is where I would start writing. So I am writing my procedure here. I don't know. So if you're a bad speller like me, what I love about Google, if you see a red underline, I can just click on it one time. Or I guess you would have to left click, but right here it says did you mean procedure? And I love this type of dictionary because it just fixes it for me. So I'm writing my procedure here, and of course yours would be a lot longer. So I do want to do a little bit more than just this one sentence, just so that you guys can start seeing what it should look like. So this is me practicing. You actually would be writing out your steps and all the items that you need for your experiment. Later on, we will be doing a table and graph. Okay, so as you can see, I can go back and fix that. Alright, so even though mine's 3 sentences, this will do. Let's say I do need to double space this for sure. I'm going to go under Insert, and I'm going to go to Format, and right here under Line Spacing, that's where it says double space. And your teacher also might want you to do a Tab button. So on your keyboard there's something called Tab, which is right next to the letter Q. I'm going to click that and it'll indent it for me. So your teacher might want that for you too, or sometimes your teachers don't mind doing block format. So keep that in mind. Also, double check with your teacher whether it's size 14 or size 18. And I personally like to add an extra space in between. So I would just double check more of the technical things on that. But at least now you know that this is what a double spacing would look like, and I know for sure your teachers would want this when you are writing a formal MLA format paper. Okay, so this is just my second page now, and this would be called my procedure, and I would keep on going. Okay, so I'm going to go to Insert and go to Page Break. I'm going to go on to the third page now, and if I wanted to zoom out and see what this all looks like, there it is. I have my title page with my question, and then my hypothesis would be there, my procedure, and now I'm on the third page, which is where I want to put a table and graph. Now, this is where, let's see. Okay, there are 2 ways to do this. One, you can add a table here, so I can go to Insert, I'm going to go to Table, and let's say it's a 4 by, I don't know. Well, let's just see. So 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's just try this. So here, as you guys can see, I have a table, and I'm going to go ahead. I think I did my table too fast, but not a problem. I can just put my mouse right here, and it will still do the job that I want it to do. I'm going to go right here to the center alignment again, and I'm going to call this Analyst or Analysis. Okay, either way, tomato, tomato. So I can go ahead and change that title again to a bigger size font, whether it's 18 or 24, depending what your teacher wants, or maybe your teacher wants 14. Just double check. But let's just say 18. And I can go ahead and go, let me just zoom in so you guys can see. Okay, so let's just say you have a slope, or you have the volume that you're trying to measure, or you're trying to measure time, or maybe you're trying to measure all of it. And then you had different trials. So my first try, the second try, and trial 3. Okay, so yes, as you guys can see, definitely you can start building a table directly on here. And I'm going to go ahead and type in just some random numbers. So let's just say 8 degrees, 15 degrees, oops, and 24 degrees. Okay, on the table like this, it looks nicer and it's probably recommended that you do write down labels so that your audience knows what you're talking about and how you're measuring that item. So that's why I am writing that. However, when you're graphing this, I am going to talk about how if you do leave the labels, sometimes that's going to throw off the graph, but we'll get to that in a second. So right now I'm just showing you what a nice table would look like. So let me just write down some numbers, seconds, 20 seconds, and 16 seconds. Okay, so there we go. And so as you can see, the table, not a problem. Again, I just went to insert and I went to table, and that was a 4x4. Oops, oh no, Control Z. Okay, so if you want to get all fancy, go ahead and you can center, you can bold it. Yeah, I don't think teachers would mind that. So I think that's okay. Maybe you want to center that, maybe you don't. So just double check, see what looks good, and we'll keep going there. So the next question is, how do I insert a graph in here? Well, if I go to insert, there isn't something called a chart, but what I do know is that under new and go to your Google Sheets, we can make a graph and that we can copy that and paste it directly onto this document. So I do want to show you a couple things on that. So I went to new Google Sheets, like I just mentioned, and here I'm going to title like graph of science experiment, okay, experiment. And I'm just going to go ahead and start labeling just exactly what I wrote over there. Okay, each of these little boxes, let's just call them cells. So under A2, that would be cell, that would be a cell, here's a cell, right? So A2, I'm going to leave blank, but I am going to call B2 a slope. And then I'm going to call C2 volume, D2 time. And again, with A, I can go ahead. Under A3, I'm going to do trial 1, trial 2, and trial 3. Okay, so that's where I can go ahead and write down these numbers, like 8 degrees, 15 degrees, and 24. So 8, 15, 24. Okay, now I did mention earlier that if I write down degrees, the graph won't be able to read that exactly. So we have to get a little creative, and we will do that in a second. But for now, don't worry about the labels next to the number on this, just worry about the numbers and what you're trying to graph. Okay, so the next one is volume. So I'm going to do 200, 200, and 200. And then time would be, oh geez. Okay, let's say 53, 20, and 16. All right, so now I have my table, and now my graph will be coming up in a second, but the computer needs to know what exactly is it that you want it to graph, right? So I gotta highlight what I want it to graph. So I can say, let's see, I can highlight trials and slope. So I can just do that and go under here, let's see, under insert chart, or I can go to insert and chart. So there's two ways. The shortcut is something that looks like graphs, or you can go to insert and go to chart. Okay, here's the trick though. You gotta highlight. So how you highlight is just put your mouse over what you want. So there it is. I'm gonna go to insert and go to chart. And for this one, let's just use a bar graph. Okay, as you can see, it says trial 1, trial 2, and trial 3. The title up here is slope, and the side is slope. But of course, we're going to change some of this. So let's go to insert. So yes, I want to insert this one specifically. And we got some cleaning up to do. This right here, even if we do leave it as trial 1, trial 2, and trial 3, let's label what exactly we are going to, what exactly we're trying to measure. Okay, same with this. So this is your X and Y axis. Okay, so under the Y, I have something called slope, but remember how we left it out? We said 8 degrees. So we're going to click on where it says slope, and instead of writing slope, we're going to say degrees. Okay, so I'm gonna, oops, yeah, so now it says degrees. Okay, what's nice about this, I can always change the color if I want it to stand out, but black is great, or if I want to make it a little bit bigger or just bold it, that's where the B stands for 14, it got a little bit bigger. Okay, so the title of the slope, if we are just measuring slope, then we can title that specifically. So slope of all trials, and it says press enter to apply, so I'm going to push enter, and now it changed it. And now it says under trial 1, it made it to, and it doesn't give the exact number. Let's see if we can fix that value. Yep, it does. So right here, all I did was I clicked, let me see if I can do it again. Okay, I just regular clicked on this symbol where it says data label, and then it says value, so now I can see exactly what number it was trying to show and demonstrate. And then of course, if I want to label the x-axis, I can right click, and then right here it says axis. And it says, do you want to add a horizontal axis title, horizontal axis labels, or the vertical axis title, and then the vertical labels. So we want a horizontal axis title, and of course you would label it here. Let's just say different trials. So we had 3 different trials. I'm going to bold it, maybe do size 14, and there is my graph. Okay, so now I have that ready to go. Let's see if I can center this. Nope, I can't. All right, we'll just leave it there. Okay, so you guys get the idea. I have my graph ready to go. So normally when I right click, there will be something that says copy, but you're gonna have to use the shortcut for this one, your keyboard shortcuts. So my mouse right now is clicked off to the side. If I click one time, you see now there's these blue little squares around it. That means it's highlighted. So I know for sure that if I do Control C, or if you're using a Mac, Command C, but Control C for a PC, or if you're using Google Chromebook. So Control C, and then if I go to my paper, remember this little table that we drew earlier? I can go to Control V. Oh no, it just happened. Okay, Control C and Control V. Okay, there it is. Alright, so now I have this beautiful graph. It has its labels, it has the numbers, its degrees, trials, and this is specifically showing the results of the slope. Now, if your teacher wants you to graph something else specifically, like time, for example, then again, you would have to highlight your trials and your time only, and then the graph will do the rest. And instead of degrees, you would write seconds, because that's how you're measuring the time, and then the trials. Okay, so that is a little bit of how to make a table and a graph. And the last part would be a conclusion, which would also look like your procedure.